if these guys are buying Amazon focused brands with high concentration on Amazon, this is how we exit. Versus if we were trying if we fought against ourselves and went and focused on brick and mortar and drove that number down on Amazon, it might have actually killed the deal. So, at the time it made sense. And that's what I would say is know your buyer if you're planning on selling your company, and just have a conversation with them, because they're just people like you and I that have conversations like this, and they might actually help you make decisions in your business that is going to lead to the ultimate exit and success of the business versus, us trying to figure it out for what makes sense for us.
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. Are you ready to unlock the full potential and growth in your business? You've already crossed 7 figures in sales, but the challenge is knowing how to take your business to the next level. Join Josh Hadley, an 8-figure ecom business owner and investor, as he interviews highly successful business owners. Get ready, because you're going to learn specific actions you can take today to help your business reach its full potential and leave a lasting impact on the world.
Welcome to the Ecom Breakthrough Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Hadley, where I interview the top business leaders in e-commerce. Past guests include Kevin King, Aaron Cordovez, Michael E. Gerber, author of The E-Myth, and today I am speaking with Bill Teter of Guided Operation LLC, and we're going to be talking about the common issues that business owners face as they scale their organization, how to successfully exit an Amazon-based brand, and all the insights and predictions to grow and to scale on Amazon in the next 5 years. This episode is brought to you by Ecom Breakthrough, where I specialize in investing in and scaling 7-figure companies to 8 figures and beyond. If you're an ambitious e-commerce entrepreneur looking for a partner who can help take your business to the next level, my team and I bring that hands-on experience, strategic insights, and the resources needed to fuel your growth. So if you or someone you know is ready to scale or looking for an investment partner, reach out to me directly at josh@ecombreakthrough.com. That's ecom with 2 M's, and let's turn your dreams into reality. But today I am super excited to introduce you all to Bill Teter. Bill is a young, charismatic business owner that has successfully led multiple companies and teams to victory. He started selling products at 12 years old and has spent the last 20 years obsessed with learning and mastering business. He now owns multiple businesses and does consulting to share his wisdom, knowledge, and resources with other small business owners. And I know he didn't put this in his bio, but he had a very successful exit back in 2021 with his Amazon FBA brand. He's still in the game, has an Amazon seller account right now. So Bill, super excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Happy to be here.
So Bill, I think the most intriguing aspect here is the brand that you guys were able to build, scale, and exit. And, it started primarily, I guess, it was a Shark Tank brand, but you started with $0 in revenue on Amazon. And, as the brand grew, it then shifted to 95% of the revenue. I think that's a fascinating statistic. So I'm interested. Why don't you give us the background? Tell us about the brand that you exited and give us all the details.
So the brand is called Read Arrest. It is a magnetic eyeglass holder. So it's a clip that hangs on your shirt and attaches by magnet, and you put your reading glasses in there. So when you lean over, they don't fall out. And any avid Shark Tank fan can either remembers Rick Hopper from season 3, very early on, where he came in and intentionally tripped and did a somersault, and the sharks actually thought he fell walking into the tank. But it was a stunt to get their attention, and it was very kind of brilliant marketing. And the point was to show that the product stays, in the holder. So instead of putting it in your shirt here where they fall out or on your head. So it was a genius idea, simple product, and sometimes those are the best. And so in 2012, it aired on Shark Tank. And at that time, Amazon was a growing business, but it didn't have the reputation it does now. Back then, it was kind of the Wild West. And so, people were like, oh, can I get it on Amazon? We're like, sure, we'll list our products on Amazon. But we didn't really take it too seriously. Even in 2012, which was, pretty well into the Amazon success. And then as they perfected it over the decade and continued to offer, better customer, their audience grew, their customer base. And so we couldn't ignore it. We had to say, okay, this Amazon thing is really taken off and we got to give it attention. So when we started doing the products, it was a traditional business where we had distributors and wholesalers, large key accounts, your chain stores. After the airing on Shark Tank, we got calls from the Ace Hardwares of the world and all the hardware chains, Bed Bath & Beyond, Walmart, so all your big box stores. And navigating those is probably a whole separate podcast as far as the contracts and, navigating large contracts and purchase orders and everything. And so back then, that was the core business. And at the time, we had 0% of our sales on Amazon. And then year over year, the percentage grew. And so it just became more undeniable about just how serious we had to take Amazon. We actually went through multiple marketing companies and agencies that, there's finding a marketing agency or finding a partner agency is probably one of the most important things you could do. They're not one size fits all. So, they may be great for some and not for others. So there's probably some more we could, talk about that. But as we grew and navigated Amazon, our sales grew and it balanced out the customer concentration. And Rick, the founder and owner of ReadArrest, and myself had ongoing discussions. One of the things that I always made the argument for was that even though, yes, Amazon as a line item is one customer, it's millions of customers. And so even some of the M&A guys that we talked to, they said, you got to diversify your customer base. You can't have 90% of your revenue on Amazon. And I said, it's millions of customers. It's not one person. And they said, yeah, but you can get your account shut down. I said, yes. And there's ways to remedy that. If you make an error when you're selling products, they usually give you a notice, warning, corrective action, and you can, continue, selling your business without a major threat. And even if in the worst case you got your account shut down, you could pivot and create a new account and, reactivate ASINs. And there's a way to succeed to where it's not really one person sitting there. And I actually made the argument that even a Walmart buyer has so much power because if they decide it doesn't fit their metrics, they're actually making a decision. Whereas Amazon's almost more autonomous. There's not someone sitting there saying, do we like this brand? Do we like the profitability? They have already baked in their margin with their logistics fees and FBA rate fees and their PPC cost to where they want as many SKUs, as many ASIN, as many sales as possible. So as time went on, it became the number one place for us. It was sometimes a little scary because we're like, well, Amazon daily metrics, going in and looking at the daily dashboard of sales reports is how we just determined our business, which was good because we got real-time feedback from customers based on reviews, based on the experience rating. And it gave us a lot of insights to be able to pivot real time versus, selling into a chain store where it takes, potentially months, if not years to complete the cycle. You don't get real time data the same way you do with Amazon. So for all those things, we always kept kind of going back and forth. Is this the right decision for the business? Should we continue focusing on Amazon? And, by the end and by the exit, it obviously made sense. But to go a little bit further into that, we made a big decision in 2020 when everybody was working from home but everybody was, buying stuff on Amazon more than ever because there was a big shift in the market. And that actually drove a lot of buyers, the middle market guys, the aggregators to come buy up brands because there was so much strength. And during 2020, no one really knew exactly what retail looked like. I mean, we had business with Walmart and Bed Bath & Beyond for 9 years where purchase orders were coming in every week. And in March, it went radio silent. And that was the scariest thing for me because they said, hey, we're a non-essential item. So everybody remembers what was an essential item and what wasn't. Well, something that holds your glasses, we say it's essential because it's, jobs and it's our business. And we felt essential going to work every day. But, Walmart just said, hey, we'll let you know. So for those few months that they had us on pause, it was very scary. Eventually it came back and, things stabilized. So it's a good, good story and ultimate success, even with the retailers. But what we did was in July of 2020, we actually had a year before brought in blue light blocking reading glasses. And so we had our patent and trademark product that was, the key component of the business. It gave us, with the patents and trademark, it gave us the ability to defend against knockoffs. And I'll go back to that story in a second. And it was, we had a moat. It was the blue ocean strategy. We owned the market completely. So we got to dictate the price. We didn't have competitors in advertising. And so we were able to stay very profitable on that product. When we entered blue light blocking glasses, there was no patents or trademark except for our brand. So we had brand registry, and that gives you some sort of, either protections, or, protections for success. But when you're doing something like blue light blocking glasses and sort of a commodity where there's a dozen other people in the space, it's very much price driven. Amazon is not much different than Walmart. They're the low cost leader. Amazon's very focused on, the conversion rate, search term conversion rate, and price. Are your reviews strong, and are you the lowest price? Whether you're competing for an ASIN with other people on the same ASIN, or even if you own the ASINs under your brand registry, they want to know, are you the best price? And so in July of 2020, I went to Rick and said, we really need to focus everything on Amazon right now, because we don't know what the rest of the retail shops look like. The independent stores were, either closed down by regulation, or we were on pause with some of our purchase orders. And I said, for whatever reason, this blue light blocking glasses, it's a hot item. We honestly got lucky to be in such a hot item, because we didn't predict it in 2019, 2018 when we were, developing our product line. We just honestly thought we should just add reading glasses as an obvious addition to the product line to sell into retail. And so come July 2020, it was, if we just do this for the next 6 months, let's really get focused, prioritize this, and make hay while the sun's shining. I mean, just take advantage of this opportunity, because we don't know what tomorrow looks like, next week looks like. We'll stabilize, we'll get back on track eventually. But while we don't know what's going on, and everybody remembers that, no one really knew what was going on in, March to, kind of September of 2020. And every business owner can, if you're in business back then, you remember it. It's starting to become a distant memory for some, but during that time, it was just one day at a time, waiting to hear the news, what was going on, what was changing. And so we just said, look, let's give our employees some confidence. Let's stay focused. Let's, focus on Amazon, and let's really focus on growing the glasses. And at that point, it was the best decision we made, because our core business stayed strong and grew. And then we introduced the kind of more red ocean strategy, where it's very price driven, very competitive. And between the two, that's what led to our ultimate success. And so the back half of 2020, from July to December, our company, the first half of the year was, sales down, purchase orders on hold. The back half was just order product, order containers. And then there was the supply chain issues where, we'd have a container sitting in the port of LA, and I'm like, I've got, that hundreds of thousands of units sitting there. I've got to get this stuff out of the port. And we were backlogged like everybody else. And that whole essential items, if it's toilet paper coming in, that was an essential item coming into the port. Glasses, they're like, well, your boat's out there, we'll let you know in 6 weeks. So it was a pretty chaotic time, but we just said, hey, let's do our best. Everybody understands what's going on. So we kind of just took the common sense approach to say, everybody is aware of this. We're not an anomaly of what's going on in the market. And so we navigated it. We did our best. We continued to just, be smart. At that time, the lead times were very long from the time we placed a purchase order overseas. It took almost about 6 months from the time we actually guessed what our sales were going to be in 6 months to the time they manufactured, exported it, shipped it, across the ocean, onto a truck. I mean, it was a lengthy process. So we never had to take aim like that, where we were guessing 6 months out what the growth would look like. So we actually took on some debt from Amazon and some other lenders through their portal, and said, let's do our best. Let's take some risk here, and let's grow our business. And because of the success, we just said, this is what we got to do. So that kind of gets us to the point where we were at our peak success. Things stabilized, and then we got into the exit.
I love that, Bill. There's so much to unpack here. So I'm interested to hear. Let's go back to I think the most recent one. So you launched these blue light blocking glasses. This was a red ocean. And it sounded like that product really helped propel your success even further. Why was that? What was your differentiation? Like, were you just playing the price game like everybody else, or how are you competing with the cheap guys from overseas?
Yeah, so we found our lane. There are the cheapest cheap readers that you can get for a few dollars, which we never made sense of that, how people were making a $5.99 pair of glasses on Amazon with FBA rate fees and advertising. I was like, we can't compete with them. And then there's the more premium products that, in the world of eyewear, it gets very expensive very quickly. So when you're selling a premium product, you're $60, $80 minimum up to hundreds of dollars. So what we did is we said, okay, what if we source a really high quality product with UV protection, blue light blocking, and tried to make a premium product, but bring it into kind of that market that was right about $16 roughly in retail, to where if we could make sense of the numbers, we weren't competing for bottom dollar price. We were a very quality product, but we said if we can find this lane, then we narrow down our competitors to really only two or three versus let's say the dozen others. So that's how we found our spot, which is really important when you're trying to figure out your price, and what product you're offering. You got to have the value proposition, because when someone's paying, using their hard-earned money to buy your stuff, they're going to consider, am I buying the cheapest stuff because it's available and reviews do matter, or am I buying a quality product? And so when we figured out the formula for, can we bring a quality product at an affordable price, that's how we ultimately won.
Nice. I love that. So it was just kind of like the right timing. You got ranked really well, I would assume. Was it part of like the brand name association that you think helped?
That definitely helped. Being a brand and focusing on having the brand recognition, of course, the success from Shark Tank and being in the market definitely helped. There's no doubt about that. There's no way to ever, truly quantify it. So we had that going for us with the momentum. And then we also had a great team of people that focused on the search terms and how to rank for the strategy was actually a bit different in terms of search terms. If you go compete for something like reading glasses, it's going to be very expensive because you're competing with all the biggest budgets. But if you were to say blue light blocking glasses for men 1.5 power, it's so specific that if you can win that, you are going to rank higher for these secondary and tertiary search terms, these keywords. And if you can win there and rank for those, you'll actually get an aggregate success, because then you're going to rank for other stuff, and Amazon will actually see your high conversions and the highly rated product and people responding to it. So then you actually become more favored when you go to work on those bigger terms. So if any listeners, as far as strategy, keywords and how you find yourself in the market, if you're in a place like reading glasses, don't compete for the word reading glasses, because it's going to be a very painful road up to try and scale. But if you can find little avenues where you can pick up kind of the crumbs and let the big guys play after the big keywords, you can build an amazing 7-figure, if not more, even 8-figure business using all those specialty keywords. And the aggregate of those specialty keywords is actually going to drive your success. So for the small business guys, that's probably one of the key nuggets of how to win in the advertising space.
Fantastic. Now, did you guys bring in like your own Amazon team? Did you hire an internal team, or was this working through an agency the whole time?
It was an agency. One of the founder and CEO of the agency actually worked with us in-house for a while and then started the Amazon agency. And so they built a business and have over 50 brands they work with. So as they grew their business, they had more insights across the market. We're able to kind of compare if we had down days or up days, they could see across the board. Is this market just naturally the consumer flow? Is it based off of certain months? Or did we have an anomaly that we need to address? So by working with an agency that really specialized in Amazon, brands and success, we didn't have to be the Amazon experts. We just said, let's meet as often as we can to talk about real-time feedback. And so that was another key component to our success.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So Bill, tell me, I'm interested to hear how the story shifted from 0% of your revenue coming from Amazon. And obviously it was all started from wholesale, right? And you were going into traditional brick and mortar retail stores. That was the story for, a long period of time. At what point did you see things start shifting more towards Amazon? And I'm curious to know, did you deprioritize the wholesale aspect of your business to where it only became 5% of your sales, or were the Amazon sales just so massive that retail kind of stayed the same year over year, but then Amazon was just a massive influx, like 95% more so.
Yeah, it was a combination of both, and I will say the combination, one was proactive and one was reactive. So proactively, we were saying, okay, how much does it cost to grow the business? And in any market, whether it's an Amazon business or your own direct to consumer website or brick and mortar, you have to be intentional. Unless you come up with the next greatest product and everybody wants it. If you're creating demand and if you're creating a market, you have to be intentional. So our proactive approach was, we're going to trade shows, we're meeting buyers, we're following up. Brick and mortar takes time. It takes, you can go to a trade show and write an order, or it takes 6 months to get into, a large retailer. One of the largest was Walgreens. It actually took 2 years to actually get the deal done. And so those long sales cycles, we were, still working on that. But the growth on Amazon was undeniable. So we were kind of reactive for a lot of years, just saying, okay, let's do it. Let's add it. Let's just keep doing this. It makes sense. And it was in the reactive model, we didn't really spend a ton of time and energy to perfect it. It wasn't until a later point where it became so undeniable that we had to turn into, okay, let's go reactive on the brick and mortar side. We still went to trade shows, but it was not our core business. And, we didn't spend all the time and money doing it. And we said, let's spend all our time and money trying to master the Amazon market, because we're getting instant feedback.
Interesting. Walk me through kind of maybe what that timeline looked like. When did you start doubling down on Amazon versus, when your focus was completely wholesale?
I think the biggest shift was in 2020. And it was because with everyone working from home or staying at home, there was so much sales growth on Amazon, no matter what business you were in, that it was undeniable. And at that time, when you're getting undeniable feedback and results, you put your attention towards the things that are working. And things that were on pause, like the brick and mortar, we just said, hey, when it works, and we'll keep at it. We know it's a long sales cycle, so let's just not put a ton of time and money towards that. And so, yeah, I would say that was that year. 2019 was a big growth year on Amazon, but it was nothing like 2020 and how we shifted our mindset. And so in 2020, that was the catalyst, and people working from home and buying from home, buying online, that we just said, it's time to give this our full attention. Let's go all in on this.
Interesting. So you never necessarily stopped doing wholesale, right? Wholesale continued to be a part of your business, and a lot of the accounts, I assume, that you signed up back in 2012, 2013, you continued to manage those accounts all the way up until exit. But Amazon was that big of growth to where it took 95% of your revenue?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So massive. When it started to go, I guess it probably, when it was close to 50, 60%, that's another, when we were looking at the metrics and the financials, it was like, this is undeniable. When you have one customer, in traditional, they say 8%. I've heard different stats for what one customer should represent in terms of your overall revenue. So when Amazon was 30%, they were like, hey, this is high customer concentration. And then it was 50, 60%. And I'm like, yeah, but it's millions of customers. They're all buying every day directly to us. And so as it got to 50, 60, 70%, it was just, we had to give it the attention that it deserved.
See, and I love, you briefly mentioned this when you were telling the story, but, as you guys were looking to exit and you're talking to M&A advisors, I think that the fear is always your Amazon account could be suspended, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I love the kind of the frame of mindset that you use there, where it's well, Walmart, all your eggs are in the same basket, but you have one guy or gal that's in charge of keeping you on the shelf or kicking you out of the store, right? And it's, what if they wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Whereas truly, Amazon has its own issues, right? There are people that get caught up and suspended falsely, but it seems like if you're doing things correctly and honestly, there's a way to get your account back more often than not. It's the people that have been doing, things they know they shouldn't have been doing that get suspended and they can't get it back. And it's that's no surprise. Tell me your mindset on that. And especially as you were talking to, M&A advisors, as you guys were looking to go out into the market, I know that, theoretically private equity doesn't like a high customer concentration. So how did you approach that?
Yeah, so sitting down with the key advisor to Rick and myself, he made the argument, very traditional, been around for many decades, done over $1 billion in deals, and in the traditional sense. And he made this argument. I remember exactly where I was at lunch when I sat across the table from him and Rick and said, yes, I understand the traditional model. However, the people we are talking to, and this is one of the key things that I even deal with today in my business, and I advise anyone else. Know who you're going to sell to. If you're going to grow your business and do it as a lifestyle for the next 20 years, and you just want to run a great business, make an income, run your business, have fun, and keep it. But if you're intending to grow rapidly or very successfully, and you want to exit the business, know who your buyer is. And I have this conversation with my team now and some of the other stuff I'm doing, where depending on the size of the business and the reason why someone would buy you, that you have to answer. And it's honestly, don't be afraid of it, because talk to people that might buy you in a year or two from now and say, what are you guys looking for strategically when you buy a business? And do you have any concerns with high concentration on Amazon? Because at that time, I was actually following a marketplace pulse site that was talking about aggregators that were middle market guys. And they were specifically intentionally buying Amazon businesses. So my argument was, if they're buying Amazon businesses, they may not even continue selling to Walmart's, Walgreens, Bed Bath & Beyond's. They may go 100%, and that's actually kind of what they've gone to after buying ReaderRest, is almost exclusively Amazon. But what they were doing, their thesis as an aggregator, what they would do is they're middle market guys, and they would go to the big guys, the big private equity groups, and raise 30, 50, 100 million, go buy up a couple brands, prove their success, and then they keep growing. And there's a lot on this. If you just Google these aggregators, the Amazon aggregators, the ones that ended up that we did a deal with bought over 100 brands within a year or two. And so, when you think about your brand representing like 1% of their sales, they actually strategically could say, yeah, it's all on Amazon for that one brand, but all of ReaderRest represents 1% of our sales. So they actually had a very strategic plan for us to, in some ways, decentralize their customer concentration just by doing the aggregator model. And so when the conversation with them was, we are primarily on Amazon, they said, great, you fit our investment thesis. You are a business that we would like to buy, because we want as many brands that either have, their patents and trademarks, their niches, their brand reputation. They actually wanted limited number of SKUs. That's mostly just an operational thing. The less number of SKUs with highest success means you can be very efficient. We had hundreds and hundreds of SKUs of reading glasses, and so that deterred some people. So that's probably just one other piece that I would mention. Be cautious about your SKU count as a total. It's not completely off the table, but some buyers said your SKU count's too large for us, and some said it doesn't matter. We can navigate hundreds of SKUs. We can navigate thousands of SKUs. So as I talked to over 30 different buyers in this space that were all Amazon aggregators, I got to basically go through and ask questions the whole way and cater our conversation and our exit towards, what are these guys buying? So in that time, I was able to figure out, if these guys are buying Amazon-focused brands with high concentration on Amazon, this is how we exit. Versus if we were trying if we fought against ourselves and went and focused on brick and mortar and drove that number down on Amazon, it might have actually killed the deal. So, at the time, it made sense. And that's what I would say is, know your buyer if you're planning on selling your company, and just have a conversation with them, because they're just people like you and I that have conversations like this, and they might actually help you make decisions in your business that is going to lead to the ultimate exit and success of the business, versus, us trying to figure it out for what makes sense for us.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I think that does make a big difference, like knowing who you're going to exit to. And obviously somebody that's already on Amazon, that knows the Amazon game, wants Amazon, right? That then you don't have to have that conversation like, oh, too much risk. Give me your mindset that you have, though, in terms of, you currently have an Amazon brand. You consult with other people that have brands on Amazon. What's kind of how do you tell them to approach their Amazon business, like in terms of being worried about being suspended by Amazon or not? Because I think you have a unique mindset there.
Yeah, I have just being in other business and, knowing the risks involved. There's always risk in business, no matter, what contract you strike with a brick and mortar or any other type of agreement. And so knowing that Amazon, if you look at their their model is to sell as much product as possible because they have figured out they're going to make money. Even if it's just FB rate fee, their logistics and handling fees, their long-term storage fees, I mean, go down the list, they keep growing. They're going to make money if you're selling product. And so Amazon is not incentivized or interested in shutting you down. Now, this is where it gets into kind of the nuance of the terms of service. So if you're doing things where you're technically or blatantly violating policy, where you're, and a lot of times, and I actually want to say this, if sometimes you have to do it to fight for your business because there is some, bad players out there, competing brands writing negative reviews. That's really tough. I mean, if I could wave a magic wand, I'd tell Amazon to fix that, figure out a way to make sure the review process is more altruistic the way it used to be before people got smart and started playing very aggressively. Because I know brands, and I work with them, that they have competitors go on there and just de-rank them and write bad reviews. And, you can have friends and family, different IP addresses. And there's a pretty easy way to get around Amazon actually figuring it out. And what you have to do sometimes is fight for your brand. And it's just like anything else. You have to fight for your business. And, sometimes the terms of service, they're written to, in large part, keep a fair and free open market. So I can respect the fact that Amazon's trying to do its best to keep it fair and free for other sellers. But there's a time and place to say, we got to do this because we got to maybe bend the rules or push it a little bit. And it's because we're dealing with things that are truly not fair. And there's no, real justice system within Amazon. You can't really go and, bring it to a court of law unless it's something so obvious, like blatant violations of patents or trademarks and things like that. But outside of that, if they're just doing things to compete with you in the free market of Amazon, I just go back to fight for your brand. And, sometimes you got to get your hands a little dirty, but be cautious because, you might get your warning, a notice. A lot of times they say, address this or 72 hours, your account gets shut down. I mean, that's scary. Like if your whole business is Amazon and they say 72 hours, your account gets shut down, it'll scare even the best business owners. But what I will say to that is, even if you were to have, rightfully or wrongfully got your account shut down, you could always appeal to Amazon. You could create a new account. You could always find a way and within a matter of days or weeks, get back on track. Whereas if you had lost a contract that you were working on for years and it took you 9 months or a year to get back on track in your business, Amazon as a marketplace allows you to, come back and keep fighting. And, yes, maybe that account had a mark, but, I'm a little more aggressive and say, it's, you got to fight for yourself and, play by the rules. The terms of service are there, but, that's, I just say fight for your business.
Interesting. Love that perspective. So Bill, another thing that you addressed was, finding the right type of agencies. So, I mean, it seems like Amazon agencies are a dime a dozen right now. You go to lots of different e-commerce conferences and there's an agency left and right, PPC agencies, there's full service agencies. I mean, I hear lots of pros and cons. Pros of, like you said, like, oh, they have their pulse on a lot of different products and markets because they manage a bunch of different brands. But as you also mentioned, like nobody cares about your business as much as you do. So the agencies, like you're just another number to them. Give me your perspective when it comes to working with an agency. It seemed like it turned out really well for you guys, but how do you find that right partner?
Yeah, that's like asking how do you find a good girl or a good husband or wife. There's not one size fits all. And what I'll say is finding someone to work with is just like dating. And it's very important to obviously do due diligence when you're talking about, engaging, because there's always going to be some sort of, timeline. You get engaged and they're going to learn your brand. You're going to learn them. Some of the best do deep dives and kind of put proposals together about what they would do. What I would do now is if I were to today start fresh and go, how do I navigate finding an agency? I would reach out to everyone. I'm that type of entrepreneur that would say, talk to 30 people. 50 people, whatever it is, because they're, like your point, they're abundant, they're readily available. Go through the painful process, because the painful process to find the right partner, the right fit, is going to be exponential to your success. Whereas if someone has just a really good, 30-minute intro, you liked them, they said a lot of good stuff, all the right things, But if you go into it and then you've now committed to them and they have access to your account and they're doing your PPC and they're building it and it's just not working over 6 months or a year, it's going to be exactly the opposite, negative, not exponentially, high. It's going to be exponentially down, or it might just be flat and, your profitability might just be bumping along. And so going into it, I would say, talk to them about what they've done. Make sure that they are in some ways just a bona fide agency where they've done brands and they know your market, they know your space. So if you're in reading glasses and items like that, versus if you're in health and beauty, or let's say if they had success with an animal product, or the pet lovers, that's probably where I'd start, is find someone that has success. Now, there's obviously a caveat there because they can't compete. So if they have, your number one competitor, you can't go to the same agency because they're going to be competing for the same keywords. So there's a caveat to that. But the main thing is find someone that it feels right, just like dating. Does it feel good? Trust your gut. That's one of the main things as being an entrepreneur, is you got to trust yourself and trust your gut. If you feel like, I don't know about this, keep asking questions until you figure out why you feel that way, or uncover what's holding you back, because it might be, are you concerned that they're going to spend too much money on advertising and not get the results, and so you can learn the acronyms, the customer acquisition cost, the ROAS, the total ad spend to Amazon revenue. You can determine what works for your business. And so when you go into a conversation with an agency, say, here are my margins. My main thing is gross profit margin, and then minus Amazon fees. You're going to know what you can actually operate and have a budget. Make sure you know what makes you comfortable as a budget, and make sure that's in the contract, to where you say, hey, I would love to work with you guys, but I need to maintain this margin. I need to maintain this ad spend. I have to know your business, know your numbers. And that's, kind of every time on Shark Tank, that's what they tell everybody, or any business conference, know your numbers. So know what works and what doesn't work before engaging, because they, as an agency, can respond and react to what you need as a business. But if you don't know, they can't ultimately be, held liable for the success or failure. Obviously, failures, if it's a failure, it's a failure. That's obvious. But I'm talking about, if, let's say, your goal as a business owner was to break even because you just wanted to drive results. You wanted to grow top line, and you're like, look, in a year or two, I'm going to cut back on advertising. I want to be the number one in the market. And then, and that's my plan. Go to the agency and say, I want to go hyper growth. I want to double my sales in the next 12 months. I will break even. Here's what I can spend with you, and here's what I can spend on advertising every month for the next 12 months. And then after that, I need it to drop by whatever percent or whatever amount. And if you know your numbers like that, it gives them clarity and confidence to understand your model, so you guys can be successful together. And so again, I go back to kind of like dating and marriage. Go into it, talk about kids, talk about religion, talk about everything, because you don't want to get married and then find out you guys don't agree on the main things of your life, or in this case, of your business, and you don't want to find that out afterwards. So I say, talk to as many people as possible. Find someone that's in your space that's successful. I'm a believer in letting, people learn with you, but you obviously have more negotiating to, have, maybe get more favorable price per month, or, a lower fee if they're kind of new. But if you can find someone that really understands your business, and you can articulate your specific goals as a business owner, and they can stay within those parameters, that is probably the formula, by and large, that's going to help you succeed.
Yeah. I love that analogy that you just shared, in terms of, make sure, see it as like a dating relationship, right? If you're going to get married to somebody, have those important conversations up front, which means you need to like sit down and think about, like, what are those important conversations that I need to have with a potential agency partner, and do your due diligence. Don't just, don't just hop in with the first one that you meet. Right.
Yep.
So I love that.
They're all going to sound good. They're all going to have a great pitch. They're all going to have a great story. And so have 30 great conversations. Be polite, be professional, thank them for their time. And if it's a great fit, let them know. Keep the conversation going. But if you feel deep down, hey, these guys are great guys, you don't have to just engage with them just because they're, great guys or gals. Make sure it feels good, because you are going to be working with them. It's as serious as finding a partner for your business or employees for your business. These are people every day that you got to be happy and comfortable with talking to. And when problems arise, which they will, there's always problems. We don't know what tomorrow's market brings. Cost of goods are increasing. Interest rates for cost of capital is high. The market changes. Market changes happen real time. What people buy, what people don't buy. and you got to have a very healthy conversation with your team externally and internally about how do we address change? Because today, what you might be thinking, it might change drastically, just like we did from our product when we launched and expanded in the different program, with the glasses. That was a massive change. And at that time, we had that conversation with them. Hey, let's be really profitable on the stuff that we kind of already own. We have momentum on. Let's not spend so much dollars in advertising trying to just maintain number one, because we are number one. We own the market. But let's find our route in this, and then make sure that it makes sense to compete in this space. And if you can get that open dialogue as the changes in the market happen, you can react. And then in that way, just like any other relationship, you don't sweep it under the rug. You don't get upset with your financials. You don't say that you don't build animosity and resentment when things change. Because if things change, have the conversation early. Just address it and figure out a corrective action plan. Make your decisions, make your bets, and then just keep moving forward.
Yeah, love that. Great mindset shifts. So my question to you, Bill, would be this. With this year, we've seen a lot of margin compression on Amazon. The increased amount of competition is higher than it's ever been on Amazon, and it will only continue to increase. With the experience that you have in both retail, wholesaling, and on Amazon, what's your recommendation to other seven-figure brand owners that started on Amazon? Do you recommend that they jump on, try to go more omni-channel? Do you recommend that they go into wholesale if they're not into wholesale? Give me your take and what you would advise Amazon first brands right now in today's day.
I would say if you started on Amazon in the last few years, anywhere from just a startup all the way to, let's say you got 3, 5, 7 years of success, especially an Amazon brand. If you're being successful, but your margins are diminishing, number one, address why your margins are diminishing. If it's truly just Amazon fees, then you can accept and say, okay, I can't control this. There's no negotiating with them. So there's no way you can, there's no reason to bang your head against the wall saying it doesn't work. So what I would say is there's probably two obvious strategies in terms of being successful. Number one, I would say if what you're doing, let's say in our business, I'll use ours as an example. It's called Wicked Hard Goods, and it's adhesives. And it was specifically because Rick loved this product and he'd been using it in a prior business and said, hey, there's not anything available on Amazon. So we're like, let's fill the market. If that product isn't available, let's fill it. But that alone isn't going to take us to victory. We actually have had these conversations real time in 2024. We're saying, hey, this is not going to be the big growth and exit like we would like. It's not going to be as easy as 2021. So what we're looking at right now is bringing in new products with a fresh perspective that are patented or trademarkable to where we can actually build some of that, protections. And specifically, we're in discussion right now about bringing a product in that has patents, and we would also bring it under our trademark brand. By doing that, if we can kind of go and do the inverse, where we were a blue ocean, strategy where we owned the intellectual properties and owned the market, and then went red ocean where we just focused on big growth. This time we were the red ocean where it's price driven, adhesive tapes, it's, commodity item, there's no protections. But if we bring in other ancillary products that help overall sales, the advertising is going to be lower. The diminishing margins are still going to be there because cost of goods are, up with inflation. But by diversifying and not saying so myopic and saying, this is what we've been doing, so we got to keep doing it. Keep doing it. Make it make sense. Try and find ways to improve your margin or cut costs. That's all, very smart business. But if you can, think outside the box, get outside perspective. And for us in adhesives, for us, we can go all the way to anything in home and in houseware. So specifically what we're talking about, without getting too detailed until it's done, what we're talking about doing is a door repair kit that is awesome. It's a great product and it's unique and it's patented. So it's not a tape. It's not an ancillary item with tape. It's an add-on item that is going to give us the ability to add revenue with all of our existing infrastructure. So our overhead stays relatively the same. We get to plug that in, and now it's just a fresh perspective on the business. So I would say bucket number one, take a minute, take a step back in your business, look at what you're doing and go, hey, I'm doing this business. What else could I add to the mix to really increase customers to know who know my brand, or maybe they could buy this with that product? And it's obviously easier said than done, but it takes a certain level of vision to step back and say, what can I add to this? And go to trade shows, walk up and down, think about it. If you're in home hardware, what are the other problems that you're dealing with as a homeowner every day doing handyman work that you could say, hey, I want to go launch this product, and then, focus on either building or launching that product. And so that's number one, is thinking outside the box and bringing products that are, protected by some sort of, patents or trademarks, or you just might own the market, because if you develop it until knockoffs come, then you can just own the market and dictate price. So that's number one. Number two is to figure out the omni-channel or ways that your brand can be successful, whether it's on your own direct-to-consumer website, affiliate websites, referral websites, or in brick and mortar. And if you look at the margins on brick and mortar, if you're doing like a keystone item, let's say you sell it for $10 and you sell it to the wholesaler for $5, you're actually going to make more money likely than you would on Amazon. And that's changed, because when we were doing it, Amazon represented maybe 30-40%, total cost. So if we sold it for $10, we always factored 30 to 40% depending on, what year it was or what time it was. And so we were making $6 or $7 per unit. That continued to drop. And right now, if you go in and that Amazon's taking 70%, and there's different stats, every market's different, but I've seen up to 70% or more with Amazon. That's a scary proposition to say, I'm going to start at 70% off from knowing my Amazon fees and costs. And that's, what we're all dealing with as, Amazon business owners. Whereas you could go back to the model of keystone items, and you're starting at potentially, 50+% margin by selling it wholesale. And so it actually switched. And I don't know exactly when that switched. It was sometime in the last 3 to 5 years. We could probably track it back and figure out when did it go from that, 60, 70% all the way down to the inverse, to 30, 40%. And so sometime in the last couple of years, it actually made sense to go and say, I could sell wholesale and make just as much money as I did on Amazon.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's been something that I've been, preaching to the choir here, which is there were a number of times where I would go to Target or Walmart and I would laugh at like, oh, how are they charging such a low price for this product? But now the script is flipped, because now Amazon's price for that product is even cheaper, which is exactly what Amazon's goal is, right? They want the cheapest thing ever. But now it makes more sense to go into wholesale. So I agree with you that I think personally, within the last 18, 24 months, that model has recently flipped, where it's, and my prediction on Amazon, I'm interested to hear your thoughts, Bill. I think Amazon over the next 5 to 10 years becomes a single digit profit margin business. Now, they have lots of volume. They're going to bring the volume, but because of the competition, unless you have an IP moat around yourself, which you talked about, I think you can have very healthy margins there. But if you don't have a patent on your product, I think you're working with single digit profit margins at the end of the day, over the next 5 to 10 years. Agree or disagree on that, Bill?
I agree, because Amazon is a growing, hungry animal, and it's autonomous. They want to increase their margins to benefit shareholders of and the people buying Amazon stock. So every way that it makes sense for them to legally do it, they're going to do it. And so you're, I think, 100% spot on. If anyone said otherwise, I want to know what either or what respectfully I say, I don't know what fairy tale land you're living in, but it's not going to go the other way. Amazon is not going to relinquish profit margin just because they want you to succeed. And honestly, even the diminishing margin isn't the number one problem I have with Amazon. The number one problem I have with Amazon is that they are, to me, in violation of a fair marketplace. And I think in the next 5 years, the only thing that protects brand owners and FBA sellers is if there's actual federal legislation and Congress gets involved to say, you have to stop competing on your own platform by making products and selling them against other competing sellers, because you're in violation of free market. You have all the access to the analytics. You can see their sales. You can see everything. You know exactly, how successful or unsuccessful their business is. And by Amazon competing, and you've seen some of it where they had like the Amazon basics and then they had to go branded where they kind of made it a cute brand, which honestly has made it more difficult for us to even see if it was an Amazon brand that we're competing against. And you're not going to win. They're always going to beat you because they can, internally, they'll beat you in PPC, they'll beat you in margin. They have the unlimited, buying power. They're going to win. And so the diminishing margin on their fees, yes, it may be single digit. And I think it's, if you just look at the timeline and the trajectory, it's a pretty safe bet if you were just to look at the diminishing margin. But it's actually, I think the biggest threat to FBA sellers is as you're successful and wildly successful, because if you start hitting 7, 8 figures and some 9 figures, Amazon sees that and they're going, well, if this guy can do it, why don't we do it? And they have an unlimited amount of resources, unlimited amount of capital. Whether they're sourcing products from any country in the world, their export import teams, they're going to win. And so that's where I would say, not to sound like doom and gloom, but it is daunting when you think about competing against the behemoth Amazon. And so I would actually point to that specifically as competing with Amazon brands and getting too successful to where they just come in and compete with you and there's no recourse.
Yeah. I love that. Fascinating prediction here, Bill. Bill, is there anything else that we haven't talked about or addressed that you feel like our audience needs to hear?
I think all I would say is, we took our best guess as to when we exited, did it make sense at the time? We were looking at, were cap gains going to get increased to ordinary income and how much more we had to have grown our sales and EBITDA to exit for the same amount. So things like taxes do affect your decision. We didn't know what the future looked like. We kind of guessed that there might have been a recession. We just had our, best guesses on, and we said, let's take this. We could probably make more money. We could run this for a few more years, but let's take the exit and then go on to the next business. And over the last 3 years, I'm really glad we did what we did at the time. And I'm not just saying that to say like, hey, we were, so smart and we did that. I'm actually saying that for optimism for the future, because it's been really tough. Multiples are down on Amazon businesses with the aggregators. It's a tough market. But I think that if over the next few years, there's going to be another wave and a window of opportunity to have those exits, and it's going to be directly affected by things like the economy and interest rates and everything else. And just make sure that, focusing on your brand, the things we talked about bringing on those extra items, building out your business, have good value propositions, think 1, 2, 3 years out, not so day to day, because right now it can be really tough to get up and be motivated to, just keep running this business if it feels monotonous or you're not getting results or you're spinning your wheels. I'm optimistic about the future because if, good business owners, they know how to pivot and they know how to figure out how to win, and, plan your exit in the next 1 to 3 years and be working on that every day, and let that be the optimism and hope for why you're going to work today. Today's numbers, today's financials may not make sense, but take a step back. What do you got to do to be successful in 2, 3 years? Because when that window comes, you got to be planning that now, not 2 years, 3 years down the road doing the same thing, going, oh, I should have added these products or I should have been in preparation. Think forward. And that's what gets us excited as business owners, to know that there's that light at the end of the tunnel. Even if it's for own, self-motivation to keep going. It's something that, when you feel alone as a business owner, or, you're diminishing margins or all hope is lost, there's always a future and there's always a way forward. So, I just wanted to kind of end on a very positive note that be thinking about a positive future, because markets always change.
Yeah. Fantastic advice. I agree. I believe, despite Amazon's single-digit profit margins in 5 to 10 years, there's still a lot of optimism. And you're right. Entrepreneurs, we're always going to find the next path. But it's important to, we just can't sit back and relax. And I think that's the most important thing, is you've got to be proactive and have some foresight in the game. So, Bill, as we wrap up this episode, I love to leave the audience with 3 actionable takeaways from every episode. Here are the actionable takeaways that I noted. So action item number 1, I think what led to a lot of your guys' success was the impact of having an IP moat around your product, right? You guys had the recognition on Shark Tank, which is obviously massive, but you also had a patented product which allowed you to charge a higher price, and you weren't dealing with knockoffs from overseas competitors. And so that's something you're doing with your current brand. You're trying to innovate and bring more things to the market. And I would say that will be good for the rest of our entire lives. If you can innovate and bring a new product to market, you can always find success there. If you can have something that's truly unique, innovative, and patented, I think the sun is still brightly shining for the next decade, 2, 3, 4, forever to come, really. And so I think that innovation is truly like the foundation of any good business. And if you're not talking to IP lawyers and things like that and understanding that, I do think that that becomes more and more important to any successful Amazon-based business down the road. So that's action item number 1. Action item number 2 is, I love the analogy you shared with finding the right partners for your business. Now, whether this is hiring somebody internally, or if this is partnering with an agency, whether it's a PPC agency or a full service agency, how do you know who the right one is? Don't just meet the first one, don't just pick up the first one. You related it to dating, right? Are you going to just date the first or marry the first girl that you date? Probably not, right? You need to have some experience, learn, see the pros and the cons between each person or agency that you're figuratively dating. And you said, go hard at it, right? Go interview 30, 40, 50 different agencies, get their mindset, have those tough conversations of big, important items, just like you would if you're going to get married. I love that analogy. I think that is so, so important, because you're right. There's always going to be issues that arise. So it's better to say, hey, we've already discussed this. I know this is kind of going to be the next step when these type of issues arise. So Bill, really good advice there. Last thing, last but not least, third action item here is to not necessarily, I'm not going to call it diversifying your business, but I'm going to say taking your business to a much more mature segment of the market, which is going into wholesale or jumping on those additional sales platforms and marketplaces, whether it's Shein or Temu or TikTok Shop or in Shopify. I think it is so important to always be testing the waters. And like you mentioned, Bill, you saw that the profit margins flipped recently, where originally people loved Amazon because the profit margins were so high. And everybody was like, oh, that old wholesale model, that's crap. That's old. Now it's almost the inverse is true. That wholesale model looks a lot more appealing because the profit margins are actually higher than what you'll see on Amazon. So consider going into wholesale. Bill, is there anything else that I didn't mention here that you would leave as an action item?
No, all I'll say is if there's anything I've said that anyone wants me to elaborate on, my info will be available. Reach out if I have any resources, or you mentioned IP attorneys. People in business. Talk to other business owners and be vulnerable. We've all been through it. It's a struggle. It can be lonely. Reach out to people, because most likely they've been through it and they might have a perfect fit for you. So if there's anything that I could offer for the success of other entrepreneurs and business owners, I'd love to share it.
Love that. Now, Bill, as we wrap things up, I'd love to ask every guest the following 3 questions. So number 1, what's been the most influential book that you've read and why?
I'm going to say there's a lot. So this is probably one of the toughest questions, but I picked one, and it's Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willing. And it's because there's a handful of key principles. The title itself, Extreme Ownership, you can take that just for face value and say, hey, basically it means it's all on me. But there's actually 4 key principles of the book that just a brief note on them. One is decentralized command. As a business owner, one of the things of being an entrepreneur is a lot of times you're unemployable because you want to do your own thing and build your own business. And you're going to have to figure out how to give up some of the controls. Find good people, have those tough conversations, and trust the process. Operations managers, marketing agencies, they may not be as good as you, but you're going to have to, if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to trust some people in your business and follow their lead and figure out how to turn off that, fear where, a lot of the control or micromanaging just comes from the fear of being successful. And we all deal with that. It's like, hey, we just want to be successful and this person's not doing it. Write good policies, procedures, have good team members, take time, to find the right people, and ultimately, trust that they're going to eventually learn. Let them make mistakes. Don't blame them, have really healthy relationships. So decentralized command is one of the main principles. The other is no bad teams, only bad leaders. Pretty self-explanatory. Get into the book. There's some incredible stories about how there's no such thing as a bad team. There might be bad people and you can deal with that, be slow to hire, quick to fire, one of those principles, but it always comes back to how are you as a business owner and a leader, motivating and incentivizing, where are your blind spots? I deal with business owners that have massive blind spots that I privately sit in a room and say, hey, this is what you really need to address because you see it one way, the team sees it another. And so, that's, get someone close, trusted that, you can be vulnerable with and say, what are my blind spots? What are my glaring defects? What am I doing wrong? And it might be one of your key people that you could just have a one-on-one with. Another is discipline equals freedom. That is in every aspect of life, whether it's your relationships, your health, your business. The more disciplined you are, the more focused you are, the better you're going to be. And it's for the opportunities that are to come, so you're prepared, and also the challenges. And so the more disciplined you are, I'm a big advocate of being disciplined in all areas, the big pillars of your life. And last but not least is prioritize and execute. And again, read the book because there's incredible stories on every of why these are such driving principles. But when you think about prioritize and execute, go back to the part where we talked about what we did in 2020. We figured out what was the priority. We could have sat around, we could have made excuses, we could have blamed, the market or the change, the landscape, Amazon's fees. We prioritized what we thought was right, and we just went all in. We said, we're going to execute. And with that level of execution, it gets you through the tough times. And so I'll leave it at that. Enjoy the book.
Oh, that's a fantastic book summary. We'll have to turn this podcast into a book summary now. That's great, Bill. Next question. What's your favorite AI tool and why?
So I'm probably one of the least qualified people to speak on AI. So I have seen some incredible things that AI does. And if you have tools that are making everything more efficient, faster, better, stronger, utilize them all, learn, grow. I mean, I'm excited to watch it. I'm not an investor in any of them. I know it's early. I'm just watching it on the sidelines going, man, this is a big change. This is a quantum leap. This is like the .com, growth in the late 90s. But I think it's, whatever multiple, 10 times bigger because of how fast it's growing. And what it's going to do is, it's going to change employees. It's going to change business. It's going to change the speed in which you have to react. And so I don't necessarily have a certain product. Like I said, I just don't have a ton of day-to-day experience other than maybe using a chat GPT to write a blog or an article like everybody else. But outside of that, I would say if you're interested in it, just try them just like the other 30. Try them out, learn them, apply them. Figure it out because it's going to grow and it's going to get perfected. And my only thing to what I would say to it, and this is kind of just my thought on AI, is in the next 5 years, AI is going to change every aspect of our lives, not just our businesses, but every aspect of our lives. And there's going to be challenges with it because it's a great tool and it's going to provide so speed in every way. One of the challenges are you're going to be able to replace a lot of key employees and people you trust. And so it's actually in conflict of having the decentralized command and having that, team of people. But there's going to be things about AI that can't ever replace human beings. And so what we have to do as humans and business owners is accept that the change is coming, watch it, learn it, and know that as the months and years roll by, it's only going to get faster. And what that means for us is what we thought about 18 months ago or 36 months ago, you have to throw that playbook out because the market is changing now and it's only going to get faster. And so, we used to have the privilege of making decisions that were well thought out over seasons with data and analytics. Now, go look at some of the young guys and gals. There's teenagers and people in the early 20s that are crushing legacy businesses in months or years. I mean, you can go pick your poison. Kylie Jenner is probably one of the most obvious ones about what she's done. And that's not necessarily AI. But the guys in AI that are mastering it, that are 18 to 22 years old, I'm like, I got to hire them for a business and hope to God I can make them, motivated to work with me because I don't get it. I mean, I'm young, but I feel like I'm still 10 years too old for, mastering AI. So what I'll say is the luxury of time that we used to have in business to make good decisions, we are losing that luxury, and you're going to have to make decisions faster and faster to stay competitive. So be disciplined, run your business and be willing for the changes to happen because they're coming and they're coming quick.
Love that insight and foresight. Very cool. All right, final question. Who is somebody that you admire or respect the most in the e-commerce space that other people should be following and why?
Another tough one. I got a long list of people that I admire. I ended up deciding that I think that the guy that inspires me, or I'm intrigued with most, I look up to most right now, is a guy named Alex Hormozi, and he's more recent. There's guys like Ty Lopez that have been around forever that have been doing it, and they're the game changers that have been doing very well. But in the last year or so, I've seen Alex Hormozi go and just do so much aggressive advertising, growing his personal brand, which is feeding his other brands. Some of them e-commerce, some of them actual physical stores. And what I'm intrigued by most, where I have the utmost respect, is he physically walks around clearly disciplined. If any listeners know who he is, he's a beast. He's a gym guy. So you're like, that guy's discipline equals freedom for sure for him. But what I am most, the respect ultimately comes from just being willing to get out there, speak like this. Instead of talking in concept, it's real data, it's facts, it's real problems, it's real challenges. And he's going it and the 10x mentality of, if you think this is good enough, one a week, do 10 a week. And there's another guy for 10x, but I actually like Alex Hormozi much better because he just applies it. He's real, he's vulnerable. He makes you feel like you're talking to a real person, not some, educator. He's a real guy that's like, here's how I grew to $100 million business. And so for that, he's the number one guy on my list.
Yeah, Alex Hormozi is one of my favorites to be following right now as well. Now, Bill, if people want to follow you, they want to reach out to you, where's the best place to do so?
I'm an old school guy. I have my cell phone. Text me or call me or shoot me an email. I'm not really one to post on social media. I'm probably in conflict because I could probably be doing a lot better and bigger if I were to, really, get out there and reach out. Introvert by nature. So I focus on the businesses I'm working on. But if there's, you're not going to probably see social media posts from me, but my phone number and email is going to be available. I'm one that responds and reacts. And if there's any way that I can be helpful, please feel free to reach out.
Awesome. We'll drop your info in the show notes. Thanks again for your time, Bill, enjoying the podcast.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening. Visit ecombreakthrough.com for more information. If you've enjoyed today's episode, the best way you can show your appreciation is by clicking the subscribe button and quickly leaving a review. See you again next time.